In this episode of the podcast, which I bet I refer to often, I am going to be laying out the steps to have a more professional hosting business, a more streamlined business, a more automated business, a better guest experience brand. These are the steps that I take with my clients whenever they come to work with me, depending on where they are now, where they need to go. When I first started working in this industry, I didn't know that not booking direct was a goal for some people, because the first hosts that I worked with, that's what they wanted to do, was to book direct. So my first strategies back in 2014 was to help people book direct before I even knew that that was a term. And then over the years, I realized many people don't care if they're booking direct. They just want to make money and they want a professional business. So this roadmap, I have often called my Book Direct roadmap. It's really just an action plan to create a more professional hosting business. So stick around and listen to the steps that you need to take to get there. Hey there, you're listening to the Savvy Host Podcast. If you're a vacation rental host struggling with branding, marketing, automations, and all the things, then you're in the right place. I'm Jodi Bourne, a vacation rental coach, marketing strategist, and a guest at more than 50 vacation rentals and counting. And I'm excited to open the door to my office, share practical tips, tools, and strategies that will help you differentiate your property, attract more bookings, and create raving fans. So if you're ready to become a savvy host, let's hang out. My husband, Michael, and I, we go on a lot of road trips, almost every weekend in the spring and the summer when it's pretty, well, not every weekend, but pretty often. I would say at least twice a month, we hit the road. And usually our dog, Jolene, is along for the ride, or often she is, depending on the purpose of our trip or what we're planning. A lot of times we don't even know what we're going to do, but we head out, we get out of our neighborhood, and at the end of our neighborhood, we can turn right or left. And so we often ask, we'll look at each other, okay, right or left? Left is towards the hill country, nice drive. There's beautiful hills and trees and super fun. We go out that way a lot. Right is the interstate or East Texas. And we go that way sometimes too. We like to head down to the beach, which would be right, and to get on the interstate. And then we still end up going through the country. We love our little road trips, and we never really have too much of a destination in mind when it's just a fun little trip like that. When Jolene goes with us, sometimes she gets to decide by whichever way she looks first. And that's, where the motorcycle's coming from or where the birds swooping in from. The point is we don't often have a destination in mind. It's just a fun afternoon outing. Sometimes we do have a destination in mind. We know we're going to the beach for the weekend, but we always have our Google Maps. The reason is because there could always be a hiccup in the road. There could always be, a wreck up ahead, a slowdown, road construction, whatever it is. A lot of times we use Google Maps, or I usually have my Google Maps on during the entire trip because we like to stop and see things. This past weekend, we stopped at this roadside bar and grill and had one of the most amazing hamburgers ever. It's listed in Texas Monthly's top 50 hamburgers, and we would have never known about that place if we hadn't detoured. The purpose in all of this long story is that businesses are oftentimes the same way. When you start a business, you don't know where you're going. You don't sometimes even know if you're really starting a business. With quote unquote Airbnb, it's often the same thing. People start an Airbnb because their mom left them a house, or they decided to purchase their own vacation rental and put it up for rental when they're not there. I've worked with hosts who had acreage and decided that they just wanted to build a little tiny home out there and see if anybody would come stay. And now they have 9 properties. But I've also worked with hosts who were very clear. We bought this because we're going to rent this, and then we're going to build another one, and then we're going to buy another one. Both ways, they still need a map. They still need a guide. They still need to know what stops they didn't make. They still need to know if they need to turn around and go to a place that they missed along the way. When I start working with hosts, I have this series of questions that I work with when we have our first consultation. And that series of questions really tells me, A, do they even know where they're going? Because sometimes they don't. Sometimes they want to work with me, or they decide they want to work with me because they just need more bookings. But once I see that they missed so many crucial steps in their journey to becoming a vacation rental business owner. And again, for example, the clients that I mentioned that had started out with just a couple of tiny homes and now they have a huge business. They didn't even know that they wanted to have a business. They just knew that they wanted to make a little extra money. They didn't know it was going to turn into the success that it has become. And that may be where you are too. Maybe you just have an Airbnb and you're not really sure what you want to do with it. Or maybe you really want this business to become a brand. There's not just one way to get to where you're going. That is true. And there's not just a linear path to get to where you're going. But there are crucial stops that you do want to make. And if you realize when you get ahead of yourself, you realize that you didn't make those stops, then you need to go back and do that. When you start doing that, when you realize what you missed and when you go build those things up, then it makes it easier. It makes your operations run smoother, makes you feel more professional. Definitely makes your business worth more money when you maybe want to sell it later or want to acquire new property and you have a brand. It's definitely more valuable when you have created a professional hosting business. So there's a lot of reasons to go back to this. Also, a lot of times people start working with me because they realize they are not making money. They're not getting as many bookings, or they added a new property or several new properties, and all of a sudden they realize that they don't have enough coming in and they're in a panic and they don't want to go through these steps. They just want an easy answer. There's no easy answer. Sure, there's a few things you can do that will make a difference next week. Definitely you can do that. But for the most part, you need to develop a strategy and a brand and a business. And so this podcast is going to cover that. How do I create a business so that I'm profitable in the long run? So I'm making my own decisions about my business, creating a brand that people will remember and come back to and share with their friends. So we're going to talk about those. Step one is you have to know your guest avatar. You have to know your perfect guest. Who is the quote unquote target market? Keeps it saying quote unquote, but target market isn't specific enough. It's a perfect guest. It's an ideal guest. It's a guest avatar. There's a lot of names for it. I call it perfect guest avatar. You also need to deliver a guest first experience. You have to have a hospitality mindset, a guest mindset. It's not just about reviews. It's about people telling other people about your property. You have to build a brand. You have to have a brand name. You have to be memorable. You have to have brand messaging, which are brand values, a brand story, a logo. You have to have business systems and automations. You can't just run a business without having software and tools that make it easier, make it more profitable, make it run smoother, and make it look more professional into the eyes of your guests. And then you also have to use marketing. You have to have a marketing budget. You have to spend time marketing. So moving forward, I want to explain a little bit more about each of these steps. I've worked with a ton of hosts who have been working for multiple years and have hosted multiple guests and never went back and really sat down and decided who they enjoy hosting. Who do they want to be working with? Who have they created an experience for? A lot of times you just take whoever is coming to your property and that's just what you accept. But then over the years you realize, I don't really want to host people with children, or, you find out that you really love working with bachelorette parties. I had worked with a host who she loved working with girl groups. And then a couple years later, I worked with another host who hated working with bachelorette parties because they left a big mess. So when you have this kind of an avatar in mind, an avatar is more than a target market. It's much more specific than that. When you have this avatar in mind, not only is it easier to create an experience for them, but it's also easy to market to them later. It's easier to create your brand, create your social media posts and content and listing descriptions, everything when you have a guest avatar. And I'll discuss that in another episode, but that's just one step along the map. For somebody starting out, that would be what I would tell them would be their first step. Who do you want to host and why? Next step is your experience. Gone are the days when you can just have a vacation rental property and put it up on a listing site and people book. They want an experience. You are not a hotel. You're not a Motel 6. You're not a Marriott. You are a vacation rental. And with that terminology comes the expectation of what you have. And here lately, if you've been listening to the media and seeing on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, Airbnbs, vacation rentals are getting a bad rap because not only are they not providing a great experience, they're providing a bad experience because they're requesting a lot of ins and outs from their guests. There's so much negativity right now about vacation rental experiences. So you have to create something fantastic in your communications, in the amenities, in the way you present it, in how you share your destination, the decor that you have. You really have to create something special to stand out above your competition. Remember that delivering an experience isn't about just getting a great review or a good review or somebody checking off a box that you have 5 stars. It's about making it so awesome that they're telling people. There's a great quote from Walt Disney about making an experience so great that people want to come back and bring their friends with them because your experience is so amazing that they want to show your experience to their friends and their family. They don't want to just go tell them about it. They want to be the ones to say, come with us to see this amazing thing. And that is how you get people to share your properties on Instagram. When you've created something so amazing, an experience that's so wonderful that they're sharing it with their friends and their family because they want to be the ones to introduce them to this amazing thing. Another thing you want to do is build a brand. You want to be a business. You want to be a professional host. And in order to do that, you have to build a real brand, a real business brand. And that means you need to have business values, a story, brand messaging, brand identity, color scheme, logo, the look and feel of your brand. You need to have a website and a social media presence. That's how you create a brand. You have to have a memorable name and a memorable logo. Then there's also the automations that go behind any business, every business. There's communications that that need to be automated, systems within your business that make it run smoother, depending on how many properties you have, depending on what part of the business you enjoy. Some people hate the cleaning of their properties, so they hire a cleaning team, and that's often the first automation that they need is how do they get their cleaners to know when their guests are checking in or checking out. Some people really love cleaning and their first automation is how do I communicate to my guests without spending a whole lot of my time? I don't want to be sending all these emails. And that's oftentimes how they get started with automations is to automate their messaging. Some people don't want to worry about the pricing. And so they often bring in a pricing system to help them determine the pricing and set the rates at different times. So all of those business systems, that's something you need to have a professional hosting business. And then you can have a PMS system, a property management system that manages all of those systems together, and it makes everything just work so much faster. It'll save you so much time and memory and craziness when you have a PMS system that puts it all together. And also with that PMS system comes the ability to book direct. And that adds other systems, which includes a lease agreement and putting the money into your bank account with credit card processing and travel insurance and damage protection, all of those other systems included to make your business stand out as a more professional hospitality company, vacation rental business. And then there's marketing, of course. You can't just list your vacation rental on a couple of listing sites and expect it to continue to stay booked. Now, during COVID, if you started your business then and long ago, sure, you could get 100% booked, not 100%, but you could get 100% of your bookings from a listing site, from Airbnb, from VRBO. But now you really need to start diversifying and proactively marketing your properties. You do that with social media, email marketing, not only to your previous guests, but you need to create a system where people can sign up for a newsletter and you can tell them about your destination and remind them about your experience. You need to use blogging on your website, or if you don't have a website yet, you can start blogging on an external website. You can even create a newsletter that is a blog that's called content marketing. Anything where you're creating this content helps people decide that they trust you and like you. And that's a huge part of marketing, is building out relationships with your potential guests. So all of these things are part of building a business, part of building any business, any successful business, but it definitely needs to be a part of your vacation rental hosting journey. It needs to be something that you're striving for, is to create this, unless, of course, you're just, sitting back, waiting for the bookings to come in from Airbnb or VRBO or TripAdvisor, wherever you are, which, if that's the case, you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast, right? Just want to explain what this podcast is really going to bring up. I'm going to be talking about building this business. I'm going to be talking about creating that guest first experience. I'm going to be talking about your guest avatar and how you use it in your marketing and branding. I'm going to be talking about logos and Instagram and writing blog posts and all of those things that are going to help you build a professional vacation rental business. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I hope that you'll stick around and listen to some of the episodes that are coming so that you too can have a professional hosting business and be a really savvy host.